The Giver by Lois Lowry, Chapter 18. Giver. Jonas asked the next afternoon, "Do you ever think about relays?" "Do you mean my own relays or just the general topic of relays?" "Both, I guess. I apologize. I mean, I should have been more precise. But I don't know exactly what I meant." "Set back up. No need to lead down while we're talking." Jonas, who had already been stretched out on the bed when the question came to his mind, sat back up. "I guess I don't think about it occasionally," the Giver said. "I think about my own relays when I am in awful load of pain. I wish I could put a requisite for it some things, but I am not permitted to do that until the new receiver the train." "Me?" Jonas said in a dead voice. He was not looking forward to end to the training when the wool would come, the new receive. It was clear to him what a terrible, difficult, and lonely life it was. The Spain, the honor. "I can recuse release either," Jonas pointed out. "It was in my rules." The Giver laughed hoarsely. "I know that. The inherent of those rules after the failure 10 years ago." Jonas had heard again and again now refers to the previous failure, but he still didn't know what you happened 10 years before. "Giver," he said, "tell me what happened, please." The Giver shrugged. "On the sure it was kid simple. A receive to be was select the way you were. The selection went smooth enough. The ceremony was held, and the selection was made. The crew cheered as they didn't for you. The new receiver was puzzled and a little frightened as you were. My parents told me it was female. The Giver noodle Jonas drew of his fabled female, Fiona, and shivered. He would want his gentle friend and safer, the way he had, taking of the memories. "What was she like?" he asked the Giver. The Giver looked sad, thinking about it. She was a remarkable woman, very self-possessed and serene, intelligent, eager to learn. He shook his head and drew a deep breath. "You know, Jonas, when she came to me in this room, when she presented himself to begin his training." Jonas interrupted him with a question. "Can you tell me her name?" "My parents said that it was to be spoke again in the community, but could you say it in just me?" The Giver hesitated painful, as if signing the name aloud. Midway scratching, "Her name was Rosemary," he told Jonas, finally. "Rosemary, I like that name," the Giver went on. "When she came to me for the first time, she sat there in the clean where you sat on your first day. She was eager and exist and a little scared well talk. I tried to experience things as well I could. They well you didn't to me." The Giver chuckled, reflected. "The explanations are difficult. The whole thing is beyond one's experience. But I tried." And she listened carefully. Her eyes were very luminous, I remember. I looked subtly. "Jonas, I have your memory that I told you was my favorite. I still have a scare of a left. The room with the family and grandpa's?" Jonas nodded. "Of course, he remembered, yes. He said it had that wonderful feeling with it. You told me it was love. You can understand, then, that that's what I felt for Rosemary." The Giver explained. "I love her. I feel it for you too." He added, "What happened to her?" Jonas asked. "Her training began. She said very well as you do. She was so enthusiastic, so delighted to experience new things. I remember her loud." His voice started and tried off. "What happened?" Jonas asked again. after the moment. Please tell me. The giver closed his eyes. It broke my heart, Jonas, to transfer pain to her. But it was my job. It was what I had to do, the way I have had to do into you. The room was silent. Jonas whitened. Finally, the giver continued. 5 weeks. That was all. I have very happy memories. A read on the merry-go-round, a kid to play with, a picnic. Some things I chose on just because I knew it would make her laugh, and I saw trace the sound of the laugh in this room that had always been so silent. But she was like you, Jonas. She wanted to experience everything. She knew that it was responsibility, and so she asked me for more difficult memories. Jonas held by his hand for a moment. You didn't give her war, didn't you? Not after just 5 weeks? The giver shook his head and slipped. No, and I didn't give her physical pain, but I have her loneliness and I have her loss. I transfer of memories of a children take for its parents. That was the first one. She appeared stand and in elm. Jonas swore. Rosemary and her laugh had begun to seem real to him, and the picture her looking up from the bed of the memories. Shocked, the giver continued. I back off. Have her more little. They laughed, but everything changed. Once she knew about pain, I could see it in her eyes. She was brave and all, Jonas suggested. The giver didn't respond to the question. She insisted, and I continued, that I not spare her. She said it was her duty. And I knew, of course, that she was correct. I could bring myself to inflict physical pain on her. But I have heard English of many kinds. Poverty and hunger and terror. I had to, Jonas. It was my job, and she had been chosen. The giver looked and the implored. Jonas strung his hand. Finally, on afternoon, we finished for the day. It had been a hard session. I tried to finish, as I do it. You, by transferring something happy and careful, but the times of Lowry were gone by then. She stood a very splendid frownly, as if she were making a decision. Then she came over to me and put her arms around me. She kissed my cheek. As Jonas watched the giver strung his own cheek, recalling the touch of Rosemary's lips 10 years before. She left her that day, left this room, and did not go back to the dwelling. I was notified by the speakers that she had gone directly to the child and asked to buy relays. But it's against the rules. The receiver in training can amply for real. It's in your rules, Jonas. But it was in hers. She asked for relays, and they tend to give in to her. I never say her again. So that was the failure. Jonas drew. It was obviously that Sandal the giver very deeply. But I didn't seem such a terrible thing. After all, and he, Jonas, would never have done it. Never had requisite relays. No matter how difficult his training became, the giver needed a successor, and he had become choose. A draw occurred to Jonas. Rosemary had been released very early in the training. What if something happened to him, Jonas? He had a whole year's worth of memories now. Giver, he asked, I can recase relays. I know that, but what if something happening, an accident? What if I fell into the river like the little foreclad did? Well, that doesn't make sense because I am a good swimmer, But what? I could swim, and well into the river, and was lost? Then there would be a new receipt, but you would already have given away an wonderful lot of important memories. So even though the word select a new receiver, the memories will be gone except for the shares that you have left of them? And then what if? He stared loud, suddenly. I sound like my sister, Lily, he said almost at himself. The giver looked at it gravely. You just stay away from the river, my friend, he said. The community lost Mary after 5 weeks and it was a disaster for them. I don't know what the community will do you with the lost. Why was a disaster? I think I mentioned to you once. The giver reminded him that when the ship won, the memories come back out to the people. If you were to be lost in the river, Jonas, your memories would not be lost with you. Memories are forever. Rosemary had only those give 5 weeks' war, and most of them were good ones, but there were those few terrible memories, the ones that overglared her. From a while they overwhelmed the community, all those feelings. They never experienced that before. I was so devastated selling my own greed and the hair lost, and my own feeling of failure that I didn't even try to help them draw it. I was angry too. The giver was quiet for a moment, obviously thinking. You know, he said finally, it lost you with all the training have had. No, they have all those memories against themselves. Jonas made a face. They had that. They certainly would. They would know how to deal with it all. The only way I deal with is by having your hair to help me. Jonas pointed out with a sigh. The giver nodded. I suppose, he said slowly, that I could. You could what? The giver was still deep in thought. After a moment, he said, if you float off in the river, I suppose I could help the whole community. The way I have helped you. It's an interesting concept. I need to think about it some more. Maybe we'll talk about it again something, but not now. I'm glad you're a good swimmer, Jonas. But stay away from the river. He laughed a little, but the laugh was likely this touched me to be elsewhere, and his eyes were very troubled.